Hey there, SRM 670 students. This is Shufflebeam approach number 7, performance testing, brought to you by Tyler McLaughlin. So who does this performance evaluation, this performance testing? Well, teachers, schools, and districts that want a better form of evaluating students that is not restricted to the limitations of standardized testing. The same teachers, schools, and districts that want a more holistic evaluation method. And teachers, schools, and districts that have the resources to score these types of evaluations, which we'll touch on in a bit. The overall purpose of this performance evaluation is to be able to compare the performance of individual students and groups of students to model performance on a given task. Grades can then be assigned to each respondent's performance using set rubrics, and this enables the assessment of the quality of the achievements represented, and also allows there to be comparisons across the groups of people that will be taking these performance evaluation tasks. There's an argument about this type of evaluation, and one side would definitely say that this type of evaluation is much more authentic than traditional standardized testing, and that it is also more accurate and reliable. Audiences, well, state-level Department of Education, so long as they can go through the processes required to implement such a comprehensive and expensive model, because it does cost a lot and takes a lot of time to go through the evaluation of these different performance assessments. Districts and principals. Now, obviously, some of the evaluation model is similar to understanding by design and has elements that are intertwined with best practice. Although districts and principals would have a hard time not being able to use the results as indicators of adequate yearly progress. And teachers not wanting to teach to the test, or for those that want a more authentic and meaningful measurement of their students' learning. The typical assessment questions concern whether individual students can effectively write, speak, figure, analyze, lead, work cooperatively, and thus solve problems up to the level of acceptable standards. Now, this process, while earlier mentioned that it's similar to understanding by design, it's a little bit different, although you might see some similar underpinnings. But the general process is to define areas of skills to be assessed. Then you figure out what type of assessment device you're going to use. Then the construction of the assessment tasks themselves. Figuring out what domination, mastery, acceptable progress is on those, so determining scoring rubrics. Defining standards for assessing the performance, so afterwards, after the performance has been done, determining what standards that performance can be assessed by. Training 6 is training and collaborating the scores, making sure that everyone is grading the same thing at the same level or similar at least, and having those conversations, and also training those individuals on what those elements that you'll be assessing in the performance are. 7 is validating the measures, and 8 would be the last part, right? Administering, scoring, interpreting, and reporting the results. Some of the original pioneers to employ performance testing, at least for public education on a statewide basis, were the Departments of Education for both Vermont and Kentucky. Other contributing pioneers or sources of information about performance testing or issues involved, well, there were heaps. There are tons of different people that have discussed the merits of how, if you give someone some sort of task and allow them to problem solve their way through it and come up with some sort of product, that is going to be a more authentic measure of their ability to be given a task and to problem solve through it than necessarily some arbitrary standardized multiple choice test. So why should we choose this method? Why does Shufflebeam think that this method is good? Well, the method is excellent for more authentically understanding where your students are in their learning, and also for cultivating better writers in the evaluation process. Because that feedback, that constantly going back and forth, the student is developing those writing skills while showing their performance during the evaluation. This process is also beneficial to have more meaningful evaluation cycle rather than your teaching session being focused on teaching to the test and then also followed by some sort of standardized test that has high stakes but that also lacks in validity and accuracy, because anybody that has been a teacher and has seen a student take a standardized test knows that it's not always a super accurate or reliable measure of that child's learning, because so many external factors, including whether or not they had breakfast, or if they got in a fight with their parent that day, or maybe they broke up, they were in some sort of relationship and they broke up, or whatever kind of conflict there might be, it might not necessarily always be that valid or accurate of a measure. So this method, performance evaluation, is better in that sense. And that is definitely an advantage of this method, in that it nearly eliminates the guesswork out of evaluation. You can definitely determine where a child is, and you're not wondering how they got there or if that is actually their level. It also forces students to legitimately show what it is that they understand. So they're guessing and perhaps getting things right, like on a multiple choice test, it also reduces that. And obviously reinforcing the writing, computation, scientific experimentation, and other life skills throughout the evaluation process also are contributed towards advantages of performance evaluation. Some of the criticisms, though, is that it takes a long time to administer these tests. And also the people that are evaluating the tests, they need to be paid as well, and it can't be done in mass. So while there are many advantages, it is also very costly to score. Sometimes it is also difficult to achieve reliable scores because of that calibration of the scores, making sure that everybody's on the same page and that everybody's scoring things with appropriate levels of rigor. So even especially at a national level, getting reliable scores is another criticism. Also, because it takes so much time to administer these tests, you're forced to narrow the range of skills that can be feasibly assessed. And also the lack of norms for comparison. Being able to compare one thing to the next and determine which might carry more validity, or that is a quote-unquote better answer when these responses are constructed. You kind of get responses from everywhere, everything underneath the sun. So determining certain norms for comparison is another criticism for this approach. These are the references talked about Flexner, and be sure to check out the handout. Hope you guys have a great day.